Hi, my name is Sue Schmidt. I'm a NANSLO-CHIO project coordinator for Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. And today we have a webinar. It is called Strategies to Improve Your Online Teaching Now. The next slide I wanted to talk through is that, as you know, this CHIO project is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, and that this product is funded by them, and also that any of the information, guarantees, warranties, or assurances of any kind expressed or implied with respect to this information is subject to limited accuracy, etc. So this is the DOL disclaimer in relationship to this webinar. However, they are funding it, and we do thank them for that. Brian, you want to go ahead and take over, please?
I will. Thank you, Sue. So just a quick introduction. My wife and I grew up in Minnesota, and from there we went to Syracuse, New York. We were there for, I think, 6 years. And then we lived in Grand Junction, Colorado for 3 years, and been at University of Wisconsin at Crosse since 2002. I was a faculty member in the Department of Exercise and Sport Science. So I've been in higher education for close to 20 years, but I think it was maybe 2004 or 2005 I started teaching an online course at the Crosse, and I really enjoyed it. I think the students enjoyed it. Other faculty members then started teaching online, and our provost said, well, we should hire someone to oversee online education. So 2 years later or so, I was hired as the Director of Online Education at UW Crosse, and I've been doing that ever since. Absolutely love it. So a lot of passion for online teaching, and just happy to be with you guys and interact with you over the next 50 or 55 minutes. So I want to have my last bullet there. I was voted president of my 8th grade class. I want to just have you guys try out some of the emoticons. So maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way up on the left-hand side, underneath the talk and video button, underneath that participants area, if you could give me like a smiley face or an applause. There you go. So yeah, I always like to get applause when I talk about being voted president of my 8th grade class, so I appreciate that. And actually it happened 2 years in a row, so that was very interesting. All right, let's keep going. We, as a family, do a lot of things outdoors. Grew up in Minnesota and now live in Wisconsin. My wife and I have been married for a long time, and we have 3 kids. They are 15, 13, and 11. So kind of in the middle of those years where we're very, very active. And I put on the screen there some things that I really enjoy. Usually that helps make a connection with someone, because someone in the audience usually likes ice cream. And you can see I put it on there twice. I like it a lot. Also like to show a picture of my little dog. This is Scout. A couple of pictures there. One he's laying in the sunshine. The other one he's outside in the cold. Doesn't like that as much. All right, well, let's get into kind of the content or the meat. And really, the objective that I have for the next 55 minutes or so is just to give you some tips and ideas, things that you can use to improve your online courses. And a lot of these things, if you go back to the title, are things that you can implement pretty quickly. You could potentially make changes. Some of them might have to wait until an upcoming term or an upcoming semester to make some of the changes. All right, so just want to give you, to start the presentation, a few questions, kind of testing your knowledge in regards to online education. I'm not sure exactly all of your positions, if you're all faculty members or potentially some administrators. I many times share questions like this with administrators, but also do with faculty members. So here's the first question, and I think I have 3 of them. The first one is, what % of colleges and universities offer fully online degree programs? And you can answer this by, again, if you go to that area where you just hit those emoticons, the smiley face, and then the one to the right of that is the step away button, and then raise your hand button. The next one has an A on it. So if you click on that, you can select A, B, C, or D. So we'll give you about 5 or 10 seconds to do that. And I think Sue is going to try and pull the answers up on the screen.
I am. So if everyone could just respond, I'm kind of monitoring right now the chat or area to see if everybody has responded before I publish the results. So if those who have not selected yet would please go ahead, and from the emoticons, you'll see emoticon that says A. Please go ahead and select an answer. And then we'll go to the next screen and we'll publish back out what the response was. Okay, I'm going to go to the next screen, and I am going to, at this point, publish out the responses that we received.
So let's see, we've got 10% that say A, and 2 people say B, someone says D. All right, and I'm going to grab Control again and go to the next slide, and it is actually D. So what percent of colleges and universities offer fully online degree programs? I can tell you that most of the time, individuals will select A or B. So sometimes that's surprising to people that there are so many colleges and universities that offer at least one fully online degree program. All right, let's go to the next question. So that surprises people, one of my favorite pictures, not one of my kids though. Second question is this: what percent of faculty say their institutions are pushing too much online instruction? So same type of thing, you go up to where those emoticons are, click on the A, and you'll have the opportunity to click A, B, C, or D.
I'm going to go ahead and share the responses from the last. So let's start with a clean slate. Sorry, I forgot to do that. So if everybody could go ahead and respond to this question now. All right, I'm going to go advance to the next slide. Oops, the wrong next slide.
So we have one person. That's okay. No problem.
Is that the right one? No, I think this was your question, right?
That's the first question.
Okay.
I'll grab it.
Okay,
so that was
the question. So I think I'm going to slide 12. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Brian. We're working on this one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and publish the responses. Sorry.
All right. So we've got A, 3 people, no one B, 1 person C, and actually 2 people say D. So let's go back out and look at the percentages again. Again, what percent of faculty say their institutions are pushing too much online instruction? And the answer actually is A. And again, that surprises people sometimes because many times they think the answer is either C or D. Online education is continuing to grow. It's continuing to be popular with both students and with faculty and with administrators. But I get the sense at my institutions in Wisconsin and other institutions that I've worked with that many times, most of the time, faculty aren't being forced to do it. They're not being pushed into offering online courses or degree programs. So that's probably why that number there is at 25%. All right, last question, number 3. So the number of students in higher education taking at least one online course is at an all-time high of what percent?
Ryan, once they've done their responses, will you advance to the next slide so I don't mess you up again?
Yes, and I think we probably have most people. So there it is.
I am ready to publish the results. There you go.
A1, B1, C was the most popular answer, and 1 person also said D. So let's go back and look at the percentages again. And again, this surprises people. Overall, if you look at the percent of students in higher education taking at least one online course. Many times people think that's very, very high. So most individuals will select C or D, but really about 1/3 of students in higher education across the country are taking at least one online course. And we actually look at data at my institution, the number of our students that take online courses, and it's about 33% as well. We have close to 11,000 students, so about 1/3 of our students are taking an online course. So again, that surprises people sometimes. And so one common question I often hear from faculty, and sometimes I talk about this a little bit more when I'm interacting with folks who are new to teaching online or just kind of getting started or getting interested in it, and I don't know the experience levels of everyone in the audience, so I'm not going to talk about this a lot, but even for individuals who are fairly new, who've been teaching for a year, or who've been teaching for 2 or 3 years, some of these things might be strategies or ideas you might want to consider. So this question, sometimes it can be overwhelming to faculty to even think about developing an online class and teaching an online class. So how do I get started is many times a question that I hear. And just some things we offer, just some ideas to share. We offer a 3-week online instructor training course at my institution. So many times I'll encourage faculty to be a student in an online course. It's a great experience. They get to see things. Hopefully it's a good instructor. Sometimes the instructor might do things that they then as a teacher, when they teach their fully online course, would do a little bit different. But it's a very good experience. So whether that's a training or you're actually taking some type of an online class, something you might want to consider if you've never done that. Many times talk about finding a mentor, someone in your department, someone in your college, someone at your university who has taught online, who has had success teaching online. Maybe it's someone in a similar department as yours, as a colleague at a different university, someone that you know is teaching online. Many times they will allow you to be part of their class. They can sign you in as a guest instructor or a student or a guest student. So it's a great way to see what someone is doing in regards to good quality online teaching. And I love this quote, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Many, many, many times over the last 6 or 7 years, I've heard faculty say, my online class, I want to teach it, I've been working on it, but it's not perfect. It's not at 100%. And I remind people that when we first started teaching face-to-face courses, again, for me that was close to 20 years ago, my face-to-face course wasn't perfect. It was far from it. But I taught it, I offered it, I got feedback, and then I made some changes and some revisions and some improvements, and I did that semester after semester after semester. So whether it's a face-to-face class, whether it's a blended class, whether it's an online class, get feedback from students, do some critical reflection and evaluation on your own, and continue to make improvements. All right, so I'm just going to pause there, and anyone have any questions, any comments? I'm going to take a few breaks, so at any point, I see Samantha's writing something, I think, but at any point if you want to, honestly, feel free to grab the mic, hit that little top button, and even if it's just a comment, some experience that you've had in an online class or something that you want to share, positive, negative, a comment on something that I say. If you have a question, again, feel free to grab that mic. The more interactive this can be, I think the better. All right, so I want to spend a few minutes and talk about creating a syllabus for an online course. And I'm not going to go through these, bullet by bullet, because you can read that information on your own. Many of these things are things that faculty and instructors have in their syllabi when they create them. But I do want to talk about a couple of them. I got another slide with some bullets related to the syllabus. And with the online, many of our instructors do list their preferred method of contact, whether that be, many times it's email, sometimes it's phone, and with some instructors, that's even text. I mean, if you truly want to be in contact with your students and you want them to contact you, that's one option, is you could have them text you, and some faculty actually do that. But the one I want to touch on more than any is the fifth one down, I believe, is student support services. And usually when I review courses, whether that's face-to-face courses or online courses, and look at a syllabus for that class, an instructor or a faculty member will add information about disability resource services, or whatever that unit or office is named or titled on your campus. But there are many more. We have a syllabus template that's available for faculty who teach online courses at my institution. Actually, we have one for faculty who teach face-to-face courses as well. And we recommend that they include the names and contact information for, there's probably 8 to 10 different student support services on campus that we encourage them to put in their syllabus. So that might be anything from records and registration, to financial aid, to the library, to counseling and testing services. It doesn't matter if a student is here on campus or a student is a distance student or an online student. They need to have exposure to and the ability to utilize the same student support services. Again, whether that student is a face-to-face student or in a face-to-face course or in an online course. Even things like the Writing Center, the Math Tutoring Lab, the Office of Student Life. There are many student support services that are probably available to your students, but it's been my experience that rarely do faculty put that information in their course syllabus. So that's just a suggestion. All right, the next, again, not going to go over these all, but I want to touch on a few of them. The first one I just want to touch on is number 3. We have a Quality Matters type document on our campus. We call it the UWL Online Course Evaluation Guidelines, and we use that document to review online courses. One of the guidelines in there is to provide students information on being an online learner. And the syllabus is one place that you can do that. And so information, just more than anything, they're success strategies, because really whether it's a student or whether it's a faculty member who's new to online, or even sometimes administrators, there can be lots of myths and misconceptions out there. So, one myth might be, well, it's online, so it's easier. For 99.9% of courses, it's not going to be easier. Online is not easier than face-to-face. So just, and even success strategies, you should probably think about logging in and working on your course at least one time a day or multiple times a day. Sometimes students think that it's an online class. I can just log in Friday morning at 11 o'clock, get everything done, and then it's over. And that's really not true. All right, I'm going to pause because I saw a question come up from Susan. Brian, are faculty required to use the Quality Matters type rubric you mentioned, or is it voluntary? Yeah, so let me just touch on that for a second. We provide that document as a resource to faculty as they work to develop their online class. And I think there are 27 or 28 standards and guidelines within that document. So they're not required to do that. We pay our faculty to develop online classes at $1,000 per credit. So most of our courses are 3 credits. Our faculty members, they have to apply to get that funding. And if they get the funding, then their course is reviewed. I review that class along with our instructional designers, and we use our online course evaluation guidelines for that review. So we utilize that document very, very heavily. We have a 3-week online instructor training course. That 3-week online instructor training course is built around that guidelines document. And that, in case someone is interested, that training course is not required before a faculty member could teach online. That's a discussion our Faculty Senate had many years ago. And they had a good discussion on it. They actually took a vote on it, again, whether someone should be required to complete training before they teach online, and they voted no. And it was a close vote. And the only reason I had brought that up was because people who had been through the training and had taught online, faculty, as well as department chairs, suggested that that's probably a good idea. So, I'm a big fan coming up through the faculty ranks of faculty buy-in. So what we could have done, in all honesty, was gone to the provost And or I could have then said, this is something that the faculty senate discussed. It was a close vote, and they said no, but I still think we should make it a policy on campus. We could have done that. We don't. We do, however, require that 3-week online instructor training course before faculty can apply for the funding to develop their class. So, we utilize that document a lot, and there's probably been, in regards to our training as well, getting a little off track. I'll get back in a second. There's maybe been 160 or 170 faculty members now on my campus who have completed that online instructor training. All right, so info on being an online learner. Again, mainly just success strategies. Log in, pay attention to due dates. You're going to have to be, do some time management on your own because it might be a little bit different than a classroom setting. Certainly an instructor can do announcements and share things like, we got a quiz tomorrow, or this week your midterm is due, or things like that. But sometimes, really, the students who struggle in online, many times I've found, are the students that don't have good time management skills. They don't pay attention to deadlines and things like that. Another one is the fourth bullet there, student workload. So we encourage, and this can be tough to figure out up front, but we encourage our faculty to think about the workload that students will have to complete, or how long it will take them to do things within their class, and then share that with students. Because again, one myth is students think online is easy. I can go in, I can do everything in 3 hours. That's all it'll take me for this entire week. We offer 3-week and 4-week courses, intersession courses, both face-to-face and online. And an example would be a History 101 class. And if that's offered in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, students might be reading 200 or 300 pages of information a day in that class. Maybe it's 100, but it's a lot. So, tell students that this is a 4-week class. You can expect to work 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, 20 hours a week, whatever you think that might be. So one area, place you can share that workload expectation with your students is in the syllabus. And the last one there, briefly touch on this because rarely do I see this in the syllabus. I think the default at my institution, students have access to a course that they take. Our learning management system is D2L, or Desire to Learn, and students will have access to that class. Once the course is over, once final grades are done, they'll have access to that class for 5 weeks. Now, a faculty member can change that. They can go in and edit that time period, and they can actually extend that to a year, and many of our faculty do. So, why would they do that? Maybe students have their things in the class that they wanted to get for resources, but they didn't print them out, or they didn't make copies. Maybe there's a really interesting discussion thread that happened during the class that a student wants to go back to and read through it again. So they don't have a lot of there's not an urgency there to print everything out or to make copies of everything right away. Again, my institution, the default is 5 weeks, and sorry, that's my phone. I'll just let it ring. And but again, they can extend that up to a year. All right. So, any questions on the syllabus? Comments? Things that you've done? Things that you have that I don't have up here? All right, I actually had a break in there. I'm going to wait for another 5 seconds and see if anyone has anything they want to bring up. Okay, let's keep going. Next topic is online discussions. I really enjoy talking about facilitating effective online discussions. We could spend an hour just on this topic alone, but a couple of ideas. When I talk to faculty about their online courses, many times this idea of online discussion comes up, and they oftentimes complain about their discussions because they're so onerous. There's so much. They read so many posts, and it takes so long to read those things and to grade those things. So workload certainly can be an issue. And after they talk about the workload, we usually have a discussion about how many discussion forums they have in their online classes. And for whatever reason, I've seen this many, many, many times, faculty will default to, if I have a 7-week class, I'm going to have 7 discussion forums. If I have a 14-week class, I'm going to have 14 discussion forums. And in all honesty, you really don't need to have a discussion forum every week. So again, in an average semester, a regular semester here, a spring or fall semester, our courses are 14 weeks long. When a faculty member teaches an online class, many times they will have 14 discussion forums. And there's nothing that says they need to do that. There's nothing in our online education handbook or policy or procedures manual, but that's just where their mind kind of goes to. And sometimes I think that can be too many. We survey our online students every couple of years, and the last time we did this, very interestingly, the students said, you know, our online discussions, don't really like them all that much. Many students said that because they're starting to feel like they're just busy work. So, you know, I have to respond to a question every week, and then I have to respond to 2 other students' responses every week, and there's just no purpose there. There's no meaning to these things, you know. So I asked faculty to think about that, and I've seen this multiple times where a faculty member would go into the back of a textbook chapter, pull out a question. Maybe there's only 1 response. Maybe there's 2 responses to that question. So it's not like a reflection type question. And they'll post that in the discussion forum for that week. And again, many of the students are saying the same things, and then students are responding with 2 other students. I could see how after 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, a student could see how that would be like just busy work. So how can you make your learning objectives more meaningful? How can you give more purpose to them? You know, one suggestion would be to really tie them in to your student learning objectives. And it's, you know, in regards to how many, if you have a 14-week class in the workload, kind of both of these combined, you know, you could have 7 online discussions, and you could do those discussions over 2 weeks. That takes a little pressure off of the student, takes a little pressure off of the instructor for grading purposes. So again, be a little creative and give some thought to how you're using online discussions. I'll give one example. I could give many examples of creating, I'll give 2 examples of creating engaging activities. So we have a faculty member on my campus who teaches criminal justice. As part of the class, their online class, and these students can be all over the country, you know, if they're taking the class in the summer, he has his students attend an AA meeting. So part of the class talks about alcohol and how that impacts crime and recovering from being an alcoholic and whatnot. So, you know, he could simply ask a question in his discussion forum about AA meetings. What do you think the atmosphere is like in an AA meeting or whatnot? But he has his students go out and attend an AA meeting. So, you know, and he has policies that they need to follow. They need to contact the sponsor. They need to get approval to attend the meeting. And then, you know, once they're at the meeting, they have to introduce themselves and say why they're there and whatnot. Well, when they're done with that experience, they then come back into the online class, into the discussion forum for that week, and they have some reflective type activity then that they post and they share in the discussion forum. So you could imagine that the discussions that result from that experience would be much different than the discussions that would probably result from simply asking a question. I'll give you another one from my teaching background. So at one point I was teaching an online health and wellness course, and as part of that course I would offer a nutrition lecture. There was a nutrition unit, and I had a discussion forum, and the question was something like, you know, well, do you think it's important to pay attention to food labels, and specifically serving sizes on food labels, and why? And you know, most students are very intelligent. They understand the question, and they answer, well, it's important to pay attention to food labels and serving sizes so you know how much you're eating. You know, if you're eating crackers and a serving is 8 crackers and you're eating 50, then you're, you know, eating 4 or 5 or 6 servings. So instead of taking in the 100 calories, which is the number of calories in a serving, you're really taking in 400 or 500 or 600 calories. Well, again, all the students would say that, and it got to be pretty boring. So what I did was I revised that after having a discussion with an instructional designer on our campus after we hired one, and I would have the students go into their cupboards and their closets and their food pantries and their freezers and their refrigerators and pull out 4 or 5 or 6 things that they ate or drank on a consistent basis. And then I would have them look at the food labels and then look at the serving size and have them report back things in the discussion forum that surprised them or that were interesting to them. And it was really fun because a student would say, wow, I actually looked at ice cream and I learned that a serving of ice cream is a half a cup. And then I measured out how much I usually eat, like in a huge bowl, and it was more like 2 cups or 2.5 cups or even 3 cups. So instead of taking in 110 calories, I'm taking in 600 calories because instead of eating 1 serving, I'm eating 5 or 6 servings. Many students didn't know that there were 120 or 130, sometimes 140 or 50 calories in a beer. And so yet you go out and you have 5 or 7 or 9 beers, you're taking in 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500 calories. So anyway, the activities surrounding the discussion forum was much more engaging as students found it interesting, and I think the participation then, they were more excited about that. I also like to talk a little bit about instructor participation. I think, how much do you participate? There's lots of thoughts out here. Many people will participate a little bit more early on to kind of be a good model to show students what it's like, how you should participate, and then they kind of back off throughout the course of the semester and kind of let students pick things up and be more active. The danger is if you participate too much, you might kind of squelch student participation. And if you don't participate enough, they might see that and kind of emulate that and not participate as well. Some people like to hold back a little bit in the beginning, and then week 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, they'll start to increase their participation. So these are instructors. My philosophy, the way I've always done things, whether I'm teaching an online course or facilitating an online workshop for faculty members, is I've always been pretty steady and consistent with my participation. So, from the very beginning, try not to be overwhelming, try not to be underwhelming, to try to be there. I think your participation and instructors' participation in online discussion forums can be a great way for you to show and demonstrate faculty presence in your online courses. And I think I have a slide later on in faculty presence, so I'm not going to talk more about that now. So I'll run through a couple of these fairly quickly. Percent of course grade. The research shows that if you give a grade to your online discussions, students will participate more. Up to about 25%, maybe 25 or 30% of the course grade related to online discussions. So if you have 60% of your course grade or even 70% of your course grade, which I've seen related to online discussions, you're not going to get much more participation from students than if you had 25 or 30% of your course grade dedicated to those online discussions. I always love to open with a fun activity related to introductions or an icebreaker. So here's another example. Many faculty will say, and it's okay if you say, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what are you in school, and what do you want to get from this class. That's absolutely fine. But I think we lose just a little bit of an opportunity to kind of engage students right away. So in my health and wellness class, I would have students as part of an introduction forum, icebreaker forum, go out to the internet and find some outrageous claim related to an exercise product, nutrition, supplements, whatever it is. So, take this supplement and lose 20 pounds in 20 minutes, or get on this piece of exercise equipment and lose 10 pounds of fat in 10 days. And then students would come back, and sometimes there would be, screenshots, sometimes there would be videos, sometimes they would have infomercials that they would link to. So it was really pretty fun. And I would try to then make connections between things that the students said in that introduction forum, in that icebreaker, and what we were going to cover in class. Oh yeah, this one is about supplements. During week 6, we're going to be talking about supplements. So I could sometimes tie in course content based upon what they shared in that introduction. And you can, most faculty will have the introduction last 1 week, and then they'll cut off the communication that students can have. And I would say open it up. Open it up for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and let students continue to interact in that introduction forum or in that icebreaker activity. And if you tell them that, you just share with them that you can keep this open for 2 or 3 weeks, and many times those discussions and those interactions will continue to happen. This idea of grading to expectations early is very important. One thing I hear many faculty complain about is, the responses from students are so superficial. Oh, I agree, or that's a great answer type of thing. Well, if you have a rubric, which is something else that I would highly recommend, let students know what you're going to evaluate and assess them on. You can clearly do that with the rubric. In your rubric, your points for a discussion forum is 1 to 5 points, 1 being not very good, 5 being exemplary. And someone posts during week 1 or week 2, not a very good post or not a very good response to another student's post, and you give them a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, they're going to continue to do that. And in reality, maybe it was a 1 out of 5 or a 2 out of 5. If you grade to your expectations early on, you will get students' attention. If you give a student a 1 out of 5 on a discussion forum post, and you have 8 posts, 8 discussion forums throughout the class, or 5 or 11 or whatever it is, that's a lot of points that student is missing. So many times that's what it takes early on, and that'll kind of alter that student's behavior. Lots of faculty and instructors will take things that are said or themes that come up within the online discussions, and they'll incorporate them into assessments. It could be into assignments, it could be into papers, it could be into midterms or final exams or weekly quizzes, whatever it is. And this does tend to have students pay a little bit more attention then to those online discussion forums. And I've been doing this online thing for 8 or 10 years, and I've taught lots and lots of classes and facilitated lots of workshops, and I've had very few problems with students being inappropriate. It does happen, and I believe all learning management systems give you, the instructor, the ability to immediately remove a post if there is something said that's inappropriate or inflammatory. Most learning management systems, probably all, give you, the instructor, the ability to remove a student from the class immediately if you need to, if something is very, very serious. Most of the time, students will say something, I've had this happen in my courses, they'll say something that's kind of like maybe slightly disrespectful or maybe a little borderline or kind of edgy, and then when I am very on top of the posts, read them all, and if that happens, I will chime in, talk about etiquette. Usually there's information in the syllabus about etiquette. Most of you are, I'm sure, familiar with what that is. And just a reminder, here are the rules related to etiquette or the guidelines. And just please always be respectful, always be polite. You don't always have to agree with everyone, but if you disagree with someone, you can certainly say that, but do it in a way that's professional and polite and respectful. 99.9% of the time, that will take care of the situation. All right, I'm going to get a drink of water. Wait for 5 or 8 seconds, so feel free to jump in, grab the talk button, type something in the chat if you want.
Well, you take a quick break. Would Dee Bailey please identify yourself, what institution you represent, and also your first name? Thank you so much. And do that in the chat area. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sue. Okay, I am back. Engaging students. Oh yeah, here is, I'm trying to do this. So here's a question for you. Please share one thing that has worked for you in regards to engaging online learners. So, yep, You can put that in the chat area. You can grab the mic. So someone, please share something that has worked for you in regards to engaging online learners. Jenny, Julie, Samantha, Sherry, anyone? Any ideas? Susan? Oh, I see you're typing. Well, wait.
Brian, one person said competition.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Yeah, thanks, Susan. Great. Yeah. I've done a few of those types of things in my classes, and they usually work very, very well. The asynchronous online is great. So there's, I'm not sure the percentage of faculty, so synchronous sessions would be sessions like this on Blackboard Collaborate or Adobe Connect, or you can do things via Skype. There's Google Hangouts. You know, there are many activities now that you can do with students that are synchronous in nature. And I think they are a great way to engage students, to have students communicate with you via text or grabbing the microphone, speaking. Anyone else? I did it. All right. Okay. So yeah, I've got a slide, and I'll just share a few ideas. But this is probably one of the biggest fears that I hear faculty share, or concerns, when they're thinking about teaching online. Many times I will hear faculty say, you know, I just don't want to lose that one-on-one connection with students. I don't want to lose that ability to see their face and interact with them to see if they're really getting it or to see if they're lost. And that's one thing I hear. And then I don't want to lose the ability to engage with my students. So there's a big fear that you won't be able to engage with students in an online format. So it really is a concern. So a couple of things. I really encourage folks to do things early on to set a positive tone for the class. So this could be how your syllabus is written. It could be the welcome message that the first thing students see when they click on the learning management system and they come into your class. Welcome. I'm super excited to be able to be teaching this class with you. It's in an online format, and I'm really, really pumped up to teach online, and there are lots of cool things we're going to do. We're going to use some technologies and going to expose you to some things. So get students excited right away. I'm a big fan of variety, whether it's delivering content. I'll probably talk about this again in regards to assessments. So deliver content, develop and deliver content in a variety of ways. So absolutely you can use textbooks and have students read chapters or sections of chapters. You can use research articles. You can take students out to outside websites. When I was teaching my health and wellness class, I would have students do activities with CDC, with the American Heart Association, American Diabetic Association, American Cancer Society. I would have them go out to those credible websites for different course-related activities. So part of that was built around this variety, this idea of variety in content. You can do podcasts. I used to do podcasts in my courses. Create short videos. Students, I found this out, made many mistakes over the last 10 years teaching online. Students don't necessarily like a 55 or 60-minute video from an instructor, but you can chunk that or create smaller videos of 3 minutes or 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and that will tend to keep their attention. So when you think about creating content and delivering content, do it in a variety of ways. There's lots of open educational resources out there. Many of you are probably familiar with Khan Academy or Merlot. So there's lots of open educational resources out there as well. Get the students involved. So maybe that's getting them involved with each other, doing group work, doing peer assessments, peer evaluations, giving each other feedback and comments on papers and projects, getting them involved in the online discussion forums. So you could have students serve as moderators. Many faculty do that. So you might have a student, or you might have two students, and they actually serve as the moderator for an online discussion forum in the class. Or you could have them post summaries. Most of the time, faculty serve as the moderator. Faculty many times will post summaries from the discussions at the end of a week or an end of an online discussion forums, but there's nothing saying that you couldn't have students do that, and many faculty do that successfully. In regards to the course content, it's always a great idea, if possible, and I think it is possible in every discipline, topic, class, subject area, to make that content relevant to them. Find relevant examples to them. You're teaching a class on finance or taxes or whatever it might be. So maybe you're talking about student loans, your student loan debt, things that are relevant to them. And the discussion forums are a great way to engage students, both with you, the instructor, and with other students. And we've already talked about discussion forums, ways of making those a little more interactive, a little more creative, a little more exciting, a little more engaging for your students. And I mentioned presence before, but I think that's a great way to engage students. So you're present in the class. Students want to hear your voice. They listen to podcasts from you. They see you via video. They are interacting with you in the discussion forum. Lots of ways you can develop presence and maintain presence throughout a course. Daily, maybe not daily, but maybe weekly updates and announcements, summaries from the past week of class. So lots of things that you can do, even responding to student emails or questions. As the director of online education at my institution, I sometimes hear from students who have a bad experience teaching online, and it really breaks my heart. And the two complaints I get most frequently, one is I was confused when I went into my class. I didn't know what to do. So that goes back to kind of course development and navigation. And the other complaint is I didn't hear back from my faculty member. It's a 3-week class or a 4-week class. I asked a question related to the course, and I didn't hear back for 4 days. That's like half the class, or 50%, 60% of the class if it was a regular semester. So presence, even responding quickly to student questions. So expectations are huge. I'm not sure if I'm going to speak about that, but share with your students the expectations that you expect of them, but that they can expect from you as well. So, if you send me an email, I will respond to you in X number of hours. For some faculty, they say 6. Other faculty say 24. I will not respond over the weekend, whatever that might be for you. And then stick with it. And, I hear faculty many times say, students just expect the response right away. It's been my experience in interacting with lots of faculty that if you tell your students, I'll respond within 24 hours, and you do that, they respect that. All right, any questions? All right. So we have 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left or so, and I've got 4 or 5 sections to get through yet, but some of these things we've already talked about. So I'll briefly talk about organization. I think organization and planning is very important. Navigation is super, super important. When a student clicks into a class, do they know how to get started? Are things consistent from week 1 to week 2 to week 3? Are you using hyperlinks within the content area? Many times you can use hyperlinks out to a Dropbox, out to a discussion forum, out to a quiz, so a student can have access to almost everything in that class right from that content area. Most instructional designers will recommend that a course be fully developed before it's taught. So that way, and that's a tough one. That's a lot of work. We've had online instructors at my institution who have done that. Most of them do that, actually, and I've had people say, that was pretty amazing because I wasn't worried about prepping my class while I was in the middle of teaching my class. And this is really interesting. Faculty members have told me that, I now do that for my face-to-face class. Got a new prep, I'm going to try and get that face-to-face class fully developed prior to teaching it. So I'm not doing the prep and doing the teaching at the same time. Not a bad idea to have information. I always talk about the syllabus. Like that's the one-stop shop. And the syllabus, I didn't mention this before, but for our face-to-face classes, many times they're 2 to 3, maybe 4 pages long. I've seen syllabus for online class be 10, 15, even 20 plus pages because there's so much information there. You know, details on all the assessments and all the assignments and whatnot. But it's not a bad idea to have information in multiple places. So all of the information can be in the syllabus, but there's nothing saying that you couldn't have a course resource area and then you have just the outline or the schedule of the class. You again have information on the assignments in the class. So I don't think it's a bad idea to supply or to give course-related information in a variety of places to your students. And you know, I mentioned this before, just super, super important. You know, when a student clicks into your class, they see the homepage of your course, there should be something, you know, lights going up, a big button that says start here, or begin by reading the syllabus, and you can find it by clicking on this link, or here are the 3 things you need to do to get started. Just make it easy for your students to get started in your class. Anything? Anyone? Yeah, Sue, Susan, sorry, saw your comment about, I believe that goes back to engaging students, so making test questions based on student-provided course content. Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm a big fan of doing that. I know that there are folks in our online courses, instructors here at my institution that do that, and you know, again, one great way to both engage students and then kind of make them feel like, you know, empower them a little bit, like they have more stake in the game in regards to the course. So thank you. Instructor presence, I mentioned that before. So I'm going to see if anyone is willing to share. I've already mentioned a few things. Anyone want to add anything else? Those of you who've been teaching online for a while? One way to make your presence as the instructor known in your online class.
Looks like Susan is posting a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. That's a great comment. I call them if they fail the first exam, and I email congratulations if they get an A. So yeah, it takes some time and some effort on your part, but those are the types of things that if you're doing those things, your students get it. Like this instructor, this faculty member cares, they're engaged, and they're present. And that's kind of what this, I think, what comes from presence many times. What you'll see in you know, the teacher evaluations are just that. Students will say, even though it was an online class, I feel like I was very close with this individual. I could communicate with them. I had a good relationship with them. And I just felt like I was close to them, and they were there. I've heard that many, many times. So Pat, let me see your question. Does your institution require students to take an orientation to online learning? No, it does not. We are in the process right now of creating kind of a student readiness module. We don't have one. It's something we've been trying to develop for quite a while. Again, we ask our faculty, don't require them to do things like contact your students a week before the class. Let them know, you know, you can even share the syllabus with them, share with them the workload, what they can expect. So kind of get them ready for the class. You know, we're looking at some type of a, not sure what the student readiness module will look like. It'll be some information on our learning management system. It'll be some best practices, how to be a successful online student type information. Again, I mentioned some of those things before, time management, check into your course frequently, you know, those types of things. That is a module or a website that we are creating that we will share with faculty to share with students, and we will, through our Center for Advancing Teaching and Learning, probably also try and find a way to share that with students as well. I know some institutions do that. Some programs do that, so it's a fully online degree program. Students might be required to take a 1-credit orientation course, so it might be orientation to the program cover the requirements. Might be some information in there related to online education. But to answer your question, that is not something we do. I don't think we will ever do that. We just had a discussion, again, kind of going off here, but I went to a committee meeting 2 weeks ago. It was a committee on academic policies and standards, because some people on campus thought, we should not let freshmen take online courses. We should not let freshmen before their fall semester take online courses in the summer, even though there's really no data that says, when freshmen do take online courses, they get bad grades or they have bad experiences. But I think it's a great idea to give students information that will allow them to be successful before they take an online class. So thank you for the question. All right, instructor presence. I mentioned this before. This is one of the complaints that I hear. So ways you can improve that. I think feedback is huge. Do students get that feedback quickly, and do they feel like it's meaningful? Very, very important. Discussion forums, I mentioned that. Responding to questions, I mentioned that too. And I also mentioned before podcasts and videos. They truly like to hear your voice, and they truly like to see your face. You don't have to do 50 videos. Maybe it's an intro video. Maybe it's 3 videos throughout the class. Sometimes our faculty do videos related to content that sometimes students struggle with. So, whatever that is, but students like to hear your voice and see your face. All right, anything else? I think I don't have very many left, but so workload management. So a master file for feedback you can cut and paste. If it's feedback on a discussion forum or it's feedback on an assignment, many times that feedback is similar from semester to semester. You wouldn't do the same exact feedback, but you could tweak it. Might save you some time. If you set up group assignments, don't do it the first day, because on day 4, the last day of the drop class, you might have 6 kids drop or students, and then you'll have to redo those groups. Tools in your learning management system. So if you can connect things like your discussion forums or grading in a Dropbox to the grades area in your learning management system, so that auto connection there will save you some time. And then I would say, consider this early on. I talked about discussion forums before, but when you're developing the class, if you have 14 discussion forums, that's 14 discussion forums that you potentially will have to grade. So just think about that early on. Also mentioned the student involvement. So you would certainly read all of the discussion forum posts, but if you wanted to have a student be the moderator, but you necessarily then could kind of back off a little bit and not be so involved, and let the student moderators be involved. I think assessment is our last one, and I do have a few more ideas, but I just threw those in there in case we have extra time at the end. So again, I'm a big fan of variety. We always ask our students, our faculty, to align your content and your course activities with the student learning outcomes, and then share that with the students. Students appreciate seeing that because they know why they're doing things. Use rubrics. I've already talked about timely and meaningful feedback, very, very important. And we could do a whole seminar on academic integrity. It is an issue. I know it's an issue with many faculty. It's an issue with faculty on my campus. There are certainly proctoring solutions you could use. And again, we could talk for a long time about this, but asking higher order, higher level type questions, having students turn in big projects in chunks, so 25% at a time, so you can see their progress. Lots of things you can do in your classes there. So Brenda, I'm going to read your question. How do you balance giving timely feedback without setting expectations that you're available 24 hours a day? What time frame is timely? Yeah, that's a great question, and that's really, we tell our faculty members that is up to the faculty members. So what most of our instructors say to their students, and you might agree with this or disagree with it, but if you ask me a question, if you send me an email, I will respond in 24 hours. That's what most of our faculty say. Unless it's the weekend, then it's 48 hours. I'll get back to you on Monday morning. Now, in regards to grading, usually it's 48 hours or more. Many times it's more. It's 3 days, it's 4 days, sometimes it's a week. But again, I think it's important that if you have a student turn in an assignment and you tell them, I will grade this and have your score back to you within 4 days, students know that, because sometimes they turn something in and they expect to get it back right away. Well, if you don't share your expectation with them, then yeah, that certainly might happen. But again, I've seen this over and over and over again, heard it from faculty over and over again. If you share the expectations, then many times, most of the time, the students will respect that. Do you have set online office hours when students can contact you? Yeah, many of our faculty do. They don't necessarily have to, but they, so a lot of our faculty will just let students know Mondays and Wednesdays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I'm going to be available in the learning management system. We have a chat function within the learning management system. So if you have questions, certainly contact me. Come online and we can talk about it. So that's what they have as their online office hours. I will tell you that 90% of the faculty members who do this get very, very few interactions from their students during those times. Many times students will contact the faculty members when they need the help. So, but that's certainly something that you can do, and you can use, again, a synchronous session like or a tool like Blackboard Collaborate or even Skype to do that. Sue, we're running out of time. You want me to go for a couple more minutes, or you want me to wrap things up?
How many more slides do you have, Brian?
I think I just have just a couple of it. I think this is the last one.
All right, so go over that and then conclude the session.
Yeah, so we've talked about synchronous sessions. If that's not something you're doing, something you certainly can do, and it's a great way to engage students. Sometimes faculty don't think about having guests in your online courses. So maybe you know the author of your textbook. Maybe you know the president of your national association. Utilize that person in your class or someone from your community. I've already talked about the outside resources, going to websites, Khan Academy, Merlot can be very, very helpful. Many of our online faculty, as well as our face-to-face faculty, use current events in their courses. Certainly something you can do to keep students interested, to show the relevance of the content in your class, to keep students engaged. And this idea that less is more, really think about that. Many times we'll hear about the course and a half syndrome. Faculty will take the activities and the content from their face-to-face class, they'll put that all in the learning management system, and then they'll add 14 discussion forums, and then they'll add other activities to their online class. So then really a 3-credit class is more like a 4, 4.5, or 5-credit class. So this idea of I don't have to cram all this content into my class. It's almost freeing many times to faculty. And I know many people will say, we've got to cover it, we've got to cover it, we've got to cover it. I just think there's been such a focus on covering so much content and not necessarily caring that the students are really learning the content. So just give that some thought and some consideration as well. All right, that's it. Sorry, Sue, I went over by a few minutes.
That's okay. Just before we close out today, I have posted a link on in the chat area. I would please ask that each of you go out to that link after this session concludes and provide your feedback on today's webinar. It is very much appreciated. It's a very simple, 6-question feedback form. So please do go out and click on that and supply your feedback. With that, I want to thank you very much, Brian, for your webinar today. I think it was extremely informative and really appreciate your time. So thank you.
Great. And Sue, I will say, if anyone has a follow-up question, if they want to contact me about anything, they can Google me or find me at my institution, but feel free to call or email anytime. I'd be happy to have a conversation.
And if you do not have his contact information and would like to reach him, then just send me an email and I will provide you with that information. So with that, we will conclude today's webinar, and please be sure to exit this session by clicking the X in the right-hand corner of the software. And thank you all very much for participating today and taking the time to listen to this webinar. And have a great holiday. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, thank you, and thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.